I thought it was just a joke, just a harmless moment of fun. If you had asked me 6 months ago what kind of man my husband was, I'd have said something like, sweet. Predictable. A little boring, but safe. We'd been married for 8 years. No real drama. No chaos. Just routine and reliability. He was the guy who always remembered to check the tire pressure, who'd send flowers, just because, and who insisted on folding laundry like it was a military operation. Me. I was the opposite. Loud. Social. I loved parties, sarcasm, teasing. I was the fun one, or at least that's what my friends always said. Especially Maya and Trish, my two closest girlfriends since college. They were wild in the best way, the kind of women who always brought the shots, the gossip, and the drama. They loved me, and they tolerated Eric. Barely. They used to call him Grandpa Eric. Not to his face, of course. But in group chats and brunch catch-ups, it was always little digs. He probably irons his pajamas, Trish would laugh. You could have married a rock star, and you chose a library card, Maya once said. And I'd laugh with them. Because I thought it was funny. Because he never seemed to mind. Eric never made a scene. He never called me out. Never complained. He'd just smile gently and stay in the background, like he always did. Then my birthday rolled around. It was my 34th, and the girls insisted on throwing me a big house party. No boring restaurant dinners this year, Maya said. Let's spice it up. Make it fun. Let's roast you a little. And by roast me, they meant Eric too. He's coming, right? Trish asked, eyebrow raised. You sure he won't short-circuit when the music gets loud? I laughed. I actually laughed. He knows it's just fun. He never says anything. And I believe that. I truly believe that my quiet, sweet, loyal husband didn't mind being the punchline. I thought maybe he even liked it, that somehow, it made me more desirable to be the star while he played the background. But I was wrong. Because that night, at the party, when the jokes started rolling, and the laughter got louder, and the mocking crossed a line I didn't even see, my husband stood up. And did something that left everyone in the room absolutely speechless. Including me. About a week before the party, I started noticing little things. Eric wasn't talking as much. He'd come home from work, kiss me on the cheek like always, but then quietly drift into the bedroom or head out to the garage with his tools. He wasn't angry. He wasn't cold. Just distant. I chalked it up to stress. He'd been working longer hours, managing a new team. That kind of shift takes a toll on someone like him, someone who thrives on routine and structure. He's the kind of man who'd rather fix a squeaky cabinet hinge than watch Netflix. That's just who Eric is. A quiet, gentle soul. Thoughtful. Safe. Safe to the point of being predictable. I used to find that comforting. In fact, after dating guys who ghosted, cheated, or emotionally wrecked me, Eric had felt like a warm, steady anchor. But over the years, I guess I started craving something else. Excitement. Passion. Chaos, even. My friends certainly didn't help. Maya and Trish, my two loudest cheerleaders, had never really taken to Eric. They didn't hate him, they just didn't get him. You're too hot for him, Maya said one day at brunch, sipping her mimosa like it was gospel truth. I mean, I get that he's sweet, but girl, does he even feel things? Blink twice if he ever raised his voice in a fight, Trish joked once. I laughed so hard I nearly snorted. That's how it was with them. Jokes, digs, sarcasm. Always funny, always over the line. And I played along. When the topic of my birthday party came up, they lit up with excitement. We're making it wild this year, Maya said. None of that Eric books a reservation at some quiet bistro, crap. They planned games, husband trivia, never have I ever, married edition, and some mystery surprise that had them cackling in the group chat. I barely paid attention. I figured it'd be harmless. Eric overheard one of their FaceTime calls one night. He didn't say anything, just walked past me with folded laundry. But I remember he lingered a little longer than usual. Later that night, he watched me texting in bed, the light from my screen flashing over his face. He stared at me a moment and asked, softly, "You sure you want me there?" I laughed and kissed his cheek. "Don't be silly. It'll be fun." He nodded. Didn't say a word. Just rolled over and turned off the light. I never thought to ask what was really going on in his head. I never thought that behind those quiet eyes, something inside him had already started to break. The night of the party was already buzzing by the time I stepped into the living room. Balloons everywhere, music pulsing, the scent of tequila and perfume in the air. Maya and Trish had outdone themselves, streamers, a neon photo booth, glow-in-the-dark cups. It was loud, messy, and so me. Eric wasn't there yet. I figured he was just running late. That was typical. He'd probably double-checked the locks, made sure the oven was off, maybe even changed shirts 3 times before settling on something respectable. That's just who he was. By the time he arrived, I was already 2 margaritas in and feeling warm all over. He walked through the door in a navy blazer, clean-shaven, his hair neatly combed. He looked sharp, but also serious. "Hey!" I called out. I kissed him on the cheek and handed him a drink. He smiled politely, but his eyes didn't quite meet mine. The game started quickly. Trish pulled out cards labeled Marriage Madness. The crowd circled around us like we were the evening's entertainment. First question, who's the more adventurous one in bed? Before I could even open my mouth, Maya yelled, obviously her, and everyone burst out laughing. Eric chuckled faintly, but I noticed how tightly he was holding his glass. Then came, describe your husband in 3 words. I smirked. Stable, vanilla, sweet. Roaring laughter. Someone clapped. A guy from Trish's office shouted, at least she didn't say boring. I turned to Eric, expecting him to laugh too. He gave a soft smile, but there was something behind it. Tightness in his jaw. His fingers clenched around the rim of his glass like it was holding him in place. Then came the zingers. Maya leaned into the mic and said, Eric's the kind of guy who says, I love you, during missionary, and actually means it. The room howled. I laughed too. I don't know why. Maybe because everyone else was. Maybe because I thought he was used to it by now. He didn't laugh. He just stood there, eyes scanning the floor, then the crowd, then finally landing on me. Then the cake came out. A giant sheet cake with 2 edible images printed on top. One side, me, photoshopped next to a shirtless male model with a 6-pack. The other, Eric, edited to look like an old man with suspenders, glasses, and a massive belly. Happy birthday to the real wild one, was scrawled in pink frosting underneath. Everyone laughed. One of Maya's friends almost fell over cackling. Phones came out. Pictures snapped. I smiled weakly, feeling a little uneasy for the first time. And then, Eric stood up. Not fast. Not angry. Just slowly. Deliberately. He set down his drink. Adjusted his sleeves. And walked toward the mic. He walked up to the mic so calmly, I thought maybe, just maybe, he was going to make a self-deprecating joke. Defuse the tension. Play along, like he always did. But when he spoke, his voice wasn't playful. It was steady. Low. too calm. I've loved this woman for 8 years, he began, his eyes fixed on the crowd, but not really seeing them. He wasn't smiling. And for most of it, I thought love meant staying silent. Being steady. Being the calm in her storm. Taking the joke. Swallowing the humiliation. And still being the one who picks up the pieces afterward. The room started to quiet. The laughter faded like it had been sucked out of the walls. Someone dropped a plastic cup. No one moved. But love, he continued, doesn't mean becoming the punchline. It doesn't mean watching the person you die for laugh at your pain, just because everyone else is laughing too. His voice didn't waver. Not once. He looked at me. For a split second, I swear I saw it all in his eyes. 8 years of quiet, of compromise, of loneliness. He wasn't angry. He was done. He set the mic down gently on the table. And then he walked out. No raised voice. No slammed doors. No drama. Just silence. At first, everyone stood frozen. Then Trish whispered, "Wait, is this a joke?" It wasn't. I blinked. My heart was racing, and my mouth suddenly felt dry. I shoved through the crowd and ran after him, heels clicking hard against the floor. "Eric!" I called out. "Wait. Come on, it was just a game." He didn't stop, didn't even look back. I followed him outside, down the driveway, but by the time I reached the curb, he was already pulling away in his car. I didn't sleep that night. I kept expecting the door to open. For him to come back. For it to blow over like everything else had. But he didn't come home. And the next morning, all I got was a single text, "Don't reach out. I've given you everything I had. Now I'm giving the rest to myself." Just that. No argument. No explanations. Just a line in the sand. That was the moment I realized I had pushed someone too far, and I didn't even notice until he was already gone. Days passed. Then a week. No word from Eric. I called. Texted. Emailed. I even drove past his office once like some desperate ghost from a former life. Nothing. No response. No clue where he'd gone. The house was quieter than ever, too quiet. Every room still smelled like him. His coffee mug was still by the sink. His hoodie still draped over the back of the couch. But he wasn't coming back. I could feel it. Then, one morning, I opened the mailbox and found a plain envelope with no return address. My name written in his handwriting, still neat, still careful. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter. 2 pages. Handwritten. The first line read, "I didn't leave the party because of the cake." I sat down, knees weak. "I left because I realized I was already invisible to you. The jokes didn't hurt because they were cruel. They hurt because you laughed with them, and not once did you look over to see if I was okay." He explained he'd been seeing a therapist for months. Not because of me directly, but because he no longer recognized himself in the mirror. "I kept trying to convince myself I was lucky to have you. That being mocked was just the price I paid for your fire, your fun. But in therapy, I realized something. I wasn't just tolerating the disrespect. I was complicit in my own humiliation." That line cut deep. He told me he had already filed for separation. Quietly. Weeks before the party. He hadn't told me because he still held on to the hope that things might change. That I might change. "That party didn't break me," he wrote. "It freed me. I finally saw what everyone else had been seeing for years, that I wasn't loved. I was tolerated. Decorated like an accessory you could mock, as long as I smiled and clapped along. The second page held only a few words, and something that felt like a punch to the chest. A printed photo was paper-clipped to the bottom corner. It was Eric, standing outside a modest home. His arm around a woman I didn't recognize, warm eyes, soft smile, hand resting on his chest like she belonged there. Underneath it, he'd written, "This is someone who laughs with me, not at me." That was the twist. He hadn't left me in anger. He'd simply moved on, months ago. I just hadn't noticed. Because I was too busy playing to the crowd. And now, that crowd, gone. Maya's texts had slowed to a trickle. Trish stopped showing up. The group chat was all but dead. I had mocked the man who loved me the most, and now, I was left alone with the silence he used to fill. The apartment is quieter now than it's ever been. The birthday decorations are long gone. The confetti that once sparkled beneath our feet has been swept away, leaving only blank space, both in the room and in me. I still catch myself expecting to hear the familiar sound of Eric's keys at the door. But there's nothing. Just silence. I've started therapy. Ironic, isn't it? After years of laughing at the man who quietly sought help, I now sit across from a stranger in a beige office and try to untangle the knots I never noticed forming. Every session starts with the same question: when did you stop seeing your husband as a person? The first time my therapist asked me that, I laughed. But then I cried. Because I didn't know the answer. Somewhere between the teasing, the performative jokes, the group chats, and the validation I got from making others laugh, I stopped seeing him. Stopped hearing him. Now, sometimes late at night, I scroll through old photos. The ones where Eric's arm is always around me, not in some big romantic gesture, but in a quiet, grounding way. I see the way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating thing in the room. The way he held my hand when I was anxious. The way he brought me tea when I was sick, without ever being asked. And I remember how I let people laugh at him. How I laughed at him. He hasn't blocked me. He hasn't told mutual friends to stay away. He hasn't said a single cruel thing about me. He just doesn't engage. Not even a reaction. And that hurts more than screaming ever could have. Because indifference is final. I tried reaching out one last time, just to say sorry. A real apology, no jokes. No justifications. No reply. Just silence, again. And now I realize something: Eric's silence isn't cold. It's not revenge. It's peace. He gave me his loyalty, his kindness, his love, and I made a show out of dismissing it, dressing it up as humor. They say the opposite of love is hate. But it's not. It's indifference. And I never thought I'd miss being loved by the man I laughed at. Have you ever mocked someone, thinking it was harmless, only to realize too late they were the only one who truly saw you?